woman and tell them wicked people, fire go burn them, fire go burn them. Oh, oh Lord, I said this is the year for love. Fire go burn them, fire go burn them. Oh, say little boy, you ain't bad at all. No, another one just gone. Boy, you beat your chest and smile. Say you's a madman. Another young boy fall. Your soul can't rest at night. Oh, you's a bad man. Bad man is a man who will defend woman and protect the young ones by any means, Lord. You ain't no bad man, boy, now. You ain't no bad man. A real bad man just make his own decisions. He don't need anyone. He only needs God. You ain't no bad man, boy, now. You ain't no bad man. So sit down, rock back. Tell them I don't need no strap to defend my people from wicked and evil. Whoa. So sit down, rock back. Big man, look for a walk. You're too damn evil. If they distress my people, then fire go burn them. Fire go burn them.
Yes, indeed, of course, a pleasant good night to all and sundry, East, West, and South Central, our friends in Tobago, and wherever you are, streaming on the World Wide Web. A pleasant good day to you indeed. Yes, a fire will burn them. But of course, this particular rendition, this particular piece was designed, of course, for the gangsters and those persons who, of course, may be engaged in what is called subterranean activities as far as the criminologist is concerned, and of course law enforcement, and indeed, of course, the what I consider to be the judiciary, as well as, of course, other social oriented elements that study, of course, human beings in society. They refer, of course, that particular tune will have referred, of course, to those young men and women who are so engaged. But coming out from Barbados, and of course the opinion formed by certain elements there, we played it last night, that of course asks the question, who are the real terrorists? And I thought it was important, of course, to reflect that, because clearly the inference, the conclusion, the indication is that Rowley and they, and therefore the government, is considered to be, of course, in this particular case, the bad men and or women that the tune is referring to. But I see that we have calls already, so let's go straight to the lines. Let me just, of course, yes, indeed, it has been paused. Let me go straight to the lines, and of course, we will take your calls immediately. Sorry for the slight tardiness, we're just about 19 minutes late, but of course, we'll compensate for that. Go ahead, my friend. Welcome to the Corridor Transformation. Hello? All right, okay, we have lost it, of course. But once again, let me say a pleasant good night to all and sundry, East, West, North, South, Central, our friends in Tobago, and wherever you are, streaming on the World Wide Web, pleasant good day to you. And maybe we should, of course, get a continued piece of this. But I want, of course, tonight to bring to your attention, of course, what I consider to be the rhetoric, the cacophonous babblings, the ambulatory orations by none other than Ibsbert, the Minister of Finance. I don't know that this government put together by Keith Christopher Rowley are totally blight and cursed. Imagine he comes, of course, to the public now after that damning, what I consider to be public expose, even though, of course, you don't look at the decisions of the Privy Council and indeed, of course, the judiciary as such, because they cannot be considered to be like journalism or newspapers or radio stations or television stations that are looking, of course, for what I would consider to be market share, because this is judiciary, and of course and those who have to make decisions in terms of adjudicating on matters have no such luxury. They have no such luxury, so therefore they will be based on the facts and what is presented before them. So what was presented before the Privy Council was such that it caused them to, of course, ask the question why Imbert was not investigated as well. And he has the audacity, the temerity, that Imbert, to say, but I want to also draw your attention because it is important for places like Laventille and of course Beetham, Sealats, the Laventilles, including of course all those constituencies along the east-west corridor, beginning of course in Diego Martin West. It doesn't matter who is there. Rowley has no locus standi as far as I'm concerned, or no special position, because he has proven to be a consummate failure. So therefore we are going to class him in the same category as everybody else. Let us not waste time. We cannot of course give people merit that they don't deserve, and Rowley does not deserve to be categorized other than of course he's a consummate failure, and of course as far as government is concerned he has proven to be of course a total nitwit, a total disaster, a total failure, a total corrupt individual that has of course corrupted not only the system itself but has garnered, purporting to be a government and or a cabinet, a group of individuals. Now when you look at Balize House alone, and when you look at the fact that the purpose for them closing down Petrotrin to save Rowley's and his friends' backsides, and the fact that they have scuttled, because they have the power, they have scuttled of course the investigation, and making it even more of course poignant, more conspicuous. He puts of course his personal lawyer that followed him even on the precincts of the parliament when of course Dr. Munilal had accused somebody with a title or a name of Rowley having some of course bank transfer to a United States bank and farther afield from of course one of the subsidiary of the company that was embroiled and at the center of the fake oil matter. And of course Rowley claiming that the owner of which is his personal friend, and he as Prime Minister, a typical example of what he has done over the last 10 years is seek his personal and his friends' interests, whether you call them 1% or otherwise, rather than the public's interest and the public good. Because from abroad, when the news broke that this fake oil matter became of course a national concern, here it is, Rowley said, and he admitted that of course in public utterances. It is public, it is in the public domain, no need of course to be clandestine or in any way to be of course reserved. But he said that he called his friend, the owner of AV Drilling, because as a friend he sees himself as obligated, as a loyal friend, to call his friend, his personal friend, totally oblivious probably to who he was talking to. I talk about the population through the media, totally oblivious as to who he's talking to, and also oblivious to the fact that he is Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago and cannot do that. It is incumbent upon him to seek the interests of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And get the hell out of there. What you doing there? When you tell me about is your friend and therefore you're loyal to a friend and you have a right to go. I don't get me vexed before I play it, you know, because there are those of course who are resolved to live in of course in perpetual denial And I'm fed up with that kind of what I consider to be not self-serving, but suicidal mission. If you want to commit suicide, do it on your own. Not to take the rest of us. And politics is of the nature similar to rain, that when it falls on all in the vicinities housed up, as indeed sunshine. As indeed sunshine. So let us not waste time. So I have no sympathy for those who, of course, are tempted to try to justify and try to, of course, what I consider to be, give some kind of cacophonous reasoning, irrelevant, ocious, and out of sync with the reality. The fact of the matter is that as Prime Minister, his first port of call when he heard the news broke from Trinidad, even though he was abroad, was at least to call his Minister of National Security, or call indeed, of course, the Commissioner of Police. He can't tell me that they go say this and they go say that. Hold your tail, Rowley. It is a matter that broke about our most crucial and critical foreign exchange. Mind you, oil, gas, and petrochemical brings in and is responsible for 80% of the foreign exchange that we now cannot get. 80%. And as Imbert would have told us, in spite of Rowley, and of course recently this Chinese man trying to tell us that of course Petrotrin was a drain on the treasury, and we know and we have evidence to the contrary, and it has been, of course, a plaint ever since this moron called, of course, Young, a Chinese man, who, of course, Rowley is attempting to foist on the people undemocratically. And I dare say, in my view, until, of course, it is proven otherwise, illegally. He ain't dead. He not incapacitated. He is not in a state where he said he contributed to putting Patrick Manning, a slurred voice, can't walk properly, bent up like a tilde accent. He cannot. And worse yet, having not called an internal elections in the party to find a leader, he wants to simply hand over the prime ministerial position to another member of the party simply because they have a slim majority in the parliament. Rowley, you have to be a backside. You don't think. And you're going to see, if you figure it is easy to just, of course, hand over and leave and go into the sunset. You still will be a member of the parliament to the period or the duration of your anointed successor, but it don't work so. It can't work so. If it was so easy, that anybody could have been, of course, a prime minister, anybody. It's not so. And the law is clear, and he will see in due course. Let him, of course, proceed in his ignorance. And blind leading the blind. You can't say that in blind man country one-eyed man is king, because none of them seem to have any kind of vision at all. That is asinine. It is dotish. It is too simplistic that you could simply say that a next person has the majority and not you. And not you. And you are there too. And on that basis alone, you transfer prime ministerial position. You think how that could be? Suppose you decide, of course, to take it back. Suppose you decide to take it back, Rowley. What will happen? The majority of them who you had anointed to be there in the lower house, I'm talking about here, in the House of Representatives, consequential of an election, are they not going to be loyal to you? Because you are the one that have them in the parliament today. So suppose nothing wrong with you, and you decide now to take back the prime ministerial position from who you anoint, whether it's Young or otherwise. It could be just so. So where you feel it is, you feel it's a lotto ticket you could just go and buy and you just distribute and hope for the best. You had to be a backside. And those who are advising this man, I feel you should be held accountable for the millions of dollars that you would have been getting, and therefore indirectly hoodwinking the population into that stupid, idiotic, simplistic, and asinine, as the Barbadian would call Rowley, position of simply handing over and that's it. No, can't be that. Cannot be. We feel is a ordinary football club, or ordinary cricket club, or ordinary institution that of course requires annual maybe elections of officers, and of course the people at the top who are influencing, they just orchestrate and share the leadership among themselves. You feel it so, and you have an opposition that knows that it is better than you. You have a population that knows that the opposition is better than you. You have a population that knows that your asses collectively and individually are grasses. And you have a population that also knows what they have to do at the next elections that is inevitable, that you are trying to avoid. Most despicably, when of course a sense of patriotic, a modicum, a minuscule sense of patriotism will tell you to call the blasted elections and done with that. We're talking about passing over things for 3 months or 4 months, as the case may be, to someone else. What you feel it is? You feel it is a relay? So that in one term, the new salary for the Prime Minister, 2 persons could share it without consequences. You know what I say? I say what he has done is that 2 persons could share it without consequences. What do I mean by without consequences? I mean that so long as that we accept this man as Prime Minister, talking about the Chinese man, Young, it means that he will be getting the same salary and the same perks, the same benefits as his predecessor or as Rowley. So in one term, 2 men, without having, of course, to give up anything, independently are getting, of course, a prime ministerial salary and pension. Where that could happen? But if it's so, then for the next couple of months, I would expect that, of course, Stuart Young will resign too, say he's going to resign. And then Donald Cox, or worse yet, Hines. They said the rest of the parliament, or the rest of the PNM elected representatives in the lower house, you just have to say they will support. He resigns, and of course you have Hines fit into the despicable as it is, horrendous as the thought is. He then, of course, acquires the position of Prime Minister. It's just so. That is what Rowley and they are attempting to tell us. You understand what I'm saying? Nothing based on their logic could prevent anyone or each one in turn. You know, they have a saying in Laventil and so on, you don't pay paid. People conspire. In other words, a conspiracy to, of course, fleece or to get an unfair advantage over another player when we're pitching marbles, etc. So, what is preventing, based on their logic, what is preventing? Nothing happened to Young. But suppose you say, well, look, I go in and resign. Is it that he and Rowley could form part of the 20 now, to support Donna Cox for Prime Minister, to support Camille Robinson Regis for Prime Minister, and everyone take turn at the Prime Minister position, and each one of them had to get $87,000 a month once they were Prime Minister, and the President agreed to that nonsense. Each one of them get 87,000 a month pension, the entire cabinet, all 23 of them. That is how ridiculous it is. That is how ridiculous. So people be smart now. Understand that Rowley can't get away with that. He had to do a total job. He had to, of course, do like the Prime Minister of Canada, Trudeau. Wait until the party who he led into government call and elect a leader, and that leader will now be the Prime Minister to take over. It can't be what that slipshod, nebulous, simplistic approach. And you have people taking them serious. A pleasant good night or welcome to the corridor.
Pleasant good night, Mr. Lennox.
Good night to you, my friend.
Good night to the right-thinking citizen of this beloved Trinidad and Tobago.
Yes, indeed.
Mr. Lennox,
hey,
that is an excellent analysis, if it's so to speak, that you are putting across to the anybody else feel to resign. But just somebody can, so it's 4 or 5 of them can be gain Prime Minister's salary
Prime Minister, because the president sign off on it. All you have to have is the majority in the lower house, and that's it. I mean, that what kind of baby house thing is this?
I would say, Balize House President, the woman who tell we carry the PNM gospel in our home. That is the president. So she's signing off on.
Well, I tell you, for the first time, our president will certainly be impeached, whether they're in government or not, because whilst, of course, the president is immune in our jurisdiction and the arrangement we have. Clearly, that level of betrayal, that level of what I consider to be abandonment and dereliction of responsibility, and, of course, unpatriotic behavior has to be questioned in the courts. Go ahead, my friend. Yes.
Yeah, after, but Mr. Lennox, all I really want to say is, I just want to go back with something, right?
Yes.
Based on what you're saying, pertaining to this situation that we're dealing with here, right?
Yeah.
With the salary and...
Yeah.
Mr. Lennox, these people went in Tobago on a retreat. And it was, based on the information I have, it was 9/11, I think.
Yes.
Right.
9/11, yes, same.
And a week after, I think it was on a Saturday, all 21 by.
Yeah, all 21, including, of course, all 21, but only 20 because it was only 21 of them because, of course, Lisa Julian had died. So she was out of the free. But let's say 20 supported him, and of course you get 21 as a consequence. Then he would support himself, yes.
Full 21 now.
Yeah.
Nobody in opposed, right?
Yeah.
So everybody walked into this room and did something unconstitutional to appoint Rowley Minimi as the next Prime Minister because he's stepping down. So they do what they want, right?
Yeah.
But they walk in that room knowing that the PNM had been in power so long without they have no economic power. So they have to do as they're told. And they always say it have fight in the UNC and it have the fighting, the little bickering that's happening in the UNC, I just call that democracy. I ain't for correction, but I will call that democracy because the people in the UNC have economic power, so we could fight for leadership, we could want to be a leader, but you realize it doesn't no fight for leadership in the PNM party. We just appoint you and you have to do it, you have to be the leader. Because it has no economic power, nobody can call it for nothing, it's who we put there or let it go with. So I just really watch it and understand, boy, what is really going on. And then the stating that I'll say what it's saying on the ground, Mr.
Yeah,
Lennox.
yes.
This is what it's saying on the ground. The stating, and it's the PNM people saying it. They was in control at the energy. Dr. Rowley closed it down based on his allegedly racket and appoint a lawyer up there to clean it up, and then they want to talk about open or they want to sell.
Yeah.
Now they're stating on the PNM people on the ground, stating now the only power they have now was the political power, and the same Dr. Rowley give it to Chinese. And then we have Faris Alwari a la tight pants, a la tight jersey, as how they say it. Tell the public that we have done it. Nobody never thought we could have done it. So in a nutshell now, he really telling them nobody thought we could have taken away everything from all you. Right? And all that to take that. Nobody think that we could have taken every single thing from all you, PNM people. I don't want to use the term black people because our population in this country, we might a man here might be straight and they might call him an Indian, and we here might be curly, but we are black people. Right? That's how I have it down.
Yes.
So I'm saying PNM people, because those are the ones that endorse poverty. They don't care, they don't want you to have anything, but once the other ethnic group have everything, then they'll be comfortable. So there's PNM people that endorse poverty. And that is why the leader of the PNM party, which is Dr. Rowley, can do what he's doing there. I don't know if I bring it across.
Perfect. There are those who are blind to that extent, so that they will of course like lamb to the slaughter. They go and get the neck chopped off, amputated, yes, or decapitated. Yes, my friend. Okay, we have some other people coming.
Thank you, Mr. Lennox.
Yes, no
Thank
problem.
you.
All right, yes, man. Let's go to another call. Let's pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor.
Good night, Mr. Lennox.
Good night.
I'm calling to let you know how Kit Rowley running like them back big black wolf from Trump government, and I find what he's doing is wrong. We have to stand up firm with him about that, because I have poor person. I can't even get medication in the hospital.
Yes.
I can't get my surgery done. Every is a complicated person, and I find what they're doing. They're treating people like a dog in the hospital. So I find if he have to call election before he leaves.
Yes, man. Well said, my friend. Well, let's go to the next call. Thank you very much, of course, for that intervention. Let me just... yes, a pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor.
Good night, Lennox.
Good night, my friend.
This is Tico Martin.
Yes, man.
A lot. So let me start on what I have been listening to.
Yes.
All you have to play that tape with Kevin Ramnarine and the other professor on the my TK on the program earlier today.
All right.
He had an interview with Kevin Ramnarine. Will tell people all that has happened with the PNM and how they're hiding the information and they're putting us down the rabbit hole.
Oh yes, so well I don't think it's a rabbit hole now, boy. I think what one could say is an escalator without cable, but starting from the top.
Right, and the line that explanation given by Kevin Ramnarine, that must be played all over the place, because the print media and the electronic media will not carry it.
Of course.
And to back it up, I listened to Karen Nunes Shishera today, and what Kevin was saying, she basically was saying the same thing. and she castigated Rowley and Stewart. Now, there's an issue that I think people would have forgotten about ANV and the arbitration. And she read out on the judgment where the senior counsel, Deborah Peake, said...
Yes, and asked them to, of course, appeal. And they
procrastinated.
They procrastinated until, of course, the period for appeal would have expired. And so, of course, he got the benefit
what
of
she
that.
quoted what the senior counsel Peake had to say. And what Peake had to say is that the people involved in the arbitration was clear misconduct. And if that had gone to the Privy Council, they had got another Jayanti Ramdas verdict.
Yeah, but well, I mean, if you would follow us, if you were following us, we were saying that all along. And of course, I mentioned it this tonight, where
Okay,
of course Dr. Rowley's his personal lawyer, are talking about Michael Kwamina, was made the chairman of the.
Died.
That's right, no. and therefore, that is a perversion of the course of the criminal justice in this country. A classic case, and he would have been the one to. And I think it would be logical to assume, I don't think it's speculation here, that he would sanitize the information that was brought before the arbitrator in order to give, of course...
not sanitize, he would have hidden the relevant information.
Whether sanitize, whether you call it sanitize, hidden, the fact of the matter is that they got information that would have given them, the conclusion that they concluded, when in fact, if they had gotten the correct and the genuine and unsanitized information, they would have had a different outcome to that arbitration. But go ahead.
And that was about 100 million of taxpayers' money went
in the process.
Away, you know.
In the process, yes.
And all them counsel who got money for those high-profile cases, all them junior, senior counsel, were making money on the head of the taxpayers.
And the government doesn't want to disclose because it is so obnoxious. It is so. Imagine them could be embarrassed, and of course because of the obscene amount that these people would have been collecting for, of course, incompetent work, because they engage in legal matters that they consistently lose, especially when they have major matters.
But it's not only they lose, they get money and their integrity is compromised. Look at Limo and Mendes. I mean, they say if he's passing on the street, people will basically
scoff and scorn. Scoff and scorn and leap, of course. Explicit to them as well, because
and if they get a flat tire on the road, we will leave them to ride there standing with no attention.
Well, worse yet, if they get knocked down, don't be surprised if people pretend they didn't see them and pass over them too, to make sure the act is completed. Yeah.
Two more issues I want to talk to.
Go ahead, my friend.
The previous caller talked about she can't get medication
in
the hospital, and I want to zone in on the NCRHA. If the CEO of that organization could put the effort into maximizing the efficiency as he did with the Dimashga, then that institute, that health center, that healthcare provider for we poor people would serve us better if he could do that. He's spending all his time elsewhere than doing the people's job, than taking our taxpayers' money to fund his salary. No, the last thing I want to talk about.
Go ahead.
Yep. The short man. I think every time he lies, he gets shorter, you know. he want to clap back at the UNC, how they're politicizing.
Just imagine that. I mean, he had the audacity to come forward and say that. But Weiss is a vast minority, let me emphasize, minority. And of course, they are now becoming extinct. But the fact is that he knows that some people will listen to that hogwash, and therefore he pushes it to gain some kind of political currency. But there is none. The political currency of the PNM has, of course, taken a nosedive to the extent to which it burning in the fire that you see behind us there. Go ahead.
Right. No, listen to this. He has now been embarrassed by the whole global community on the fiasco of where the $3 billion gone. He hasn't
he just says that
so
it ain't missing. How does that, how you saying that has any credibility, would resolve the problem without, of course, the paper trail that is necessary to, of course, confirm or certify that? But go ahead, my friend.
All right. And the Privy Council must probably be smarter than us. No, he should be investigated. But the critical thing is why they pull it back from the court. You know why they pull it back from the court? A public servant cannot come out in public and give any opinion as to what went on. The only opportunity she would have had is to speak to the issue in affidavits in the court, so all of us would have known who pocketed the money. Because a man up in California with a set of taxpayers' money enjoying himself, you know. No. If he wants to blame the public servants who embarrass him, like the short man, why don't he fire them? If they embarrass him, you taking all that embarrassment, slap in your face, everybody ridiculing, you know, the integrity of our senior counsels look like he's a junior counsel with memory loss, and you just taking it just and you blaming people and you are removing them from office. So if you remove them from office now, those public servants, it go happen next year again. You're not doing the corrective action and preventive action.
My friend, it is deeper than that. It speaks to the character and moral and ethical qualities of these people. He had a right to resign himself because of the quantum and the extent and the monolithic nature of that so-called. He wanted to say that discrepancy. It cannot be not at that level. It's not $1 million you're talking about, or not even 100 million. You know, it's $2.something billion after you got the opportunity to reconcile the original $3 billion. You still come up short.
And
not marginally, but majorly.
Right.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was fortunate to talk to somebody who has been in that organization, and one of the first things they tell me, that has been happening for the last 9 years with previous person who was holding that office, and because they
like Heller in Central Bank, very accommodating and of course complicit and complacent. Yes,
and Minister of Finance.
Yeah, complicit and complacent.
And you have to understand, this is a strong woman who took over the office. They didn't expect that.
No, they didn't expect that. Definitely.
Look at what I'm saying has some credibility. Why has this short man never gone on a holiday until the motive?
That was the talk. Remember, we explored that on the ground report. We sent in several quarters. Why it is? Why?
That is what he was hiding. They were cooking the books, and it have creative accounting that accountants could do. They could carry over and hide it.
Yes, of course.
Nobody looking at the nitty-gritty. Okay, let me give somebody a chance.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Of course, it was interesting, though, that, of course, you were able to extract, as the previous callers, as well, in terms of the analysis as to this government and its incompetence, impotence, and, of course, its conmanship. But I want to tell you this as well. I have, of course, converted into audio Imsberg's statement and compare it, of course, with other statements we have made in the past. Look forward to that after this call. A pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor.
Hey, Lennox, good night.
Yes.
You hear me good?
Loud and clear, my friend.
Right. Now, I enjoy you going before this morning.
Yes. Thank you.
But I have one thing I vexed about.
Go ahead.
I hear people saying that when fellas are working right now, they have no choice but to go and thief.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, the thing is this, them know who is the people that make them other one thief. Don't come by me and distress me. The people who put them all in that position, who by them and thief, you know my so?
Yeah, fair enough. To whom, or put another way, those who would have distressed you, you have a moral obligation to reciprocate. You have to go and distress them, yeah.
Yeah, don't come by me. I immediately come out and work on all this thing.
Yes.
Unfortunately, now the next thing I want to talk about.
Go ahead, my friend.
Well, a little while now, I hear people talking about pension. People get too much pension and all this kind of thing, right? Now, here what happened today? I'm coming from the supermarket today. And crossing the road. I can't swing the corner just so. I don't even let the road already.
All right.
But I shut up right there. I say, what is so wrong with you? Where are we going? You know I can't pass. You only can't tell me, man. I read man tell him, yeah, the kid don't need a pensioner. No, Lennox. No.
So, pensioners are expendable now?
But this you question.
Oh my goodness. Go ahead. Yes.
Yeah. I said, I'm right there.
Yeah. I can imagine how annoyed you became.
What do you mean?
Yes. As a pensioner yourself.
You know that you open up my mouth and shut up.
Yeah, I know you will tell them give them some choice words.
Yes. So what about that? This Lennox?
Yes.
Somebody trying to get rid of pensioners or what?
Well. I mean, every suspicion, whether it be conspiracy theory that the government would, of course, would like it to be, because they will do that to defend themselves. The fact of the matter is that their conduct has generated, of course, that level. Because remember, when they forced senior citizens to go and take the vaccine in the various centers and they didn't have any vaccine, one of the reasons for going out there and taking the risk by these senior citizens is that their pension was in jeopardy. So they have themselves to blame if people have that kind of attitude towards them. And most recently, of course, having a $25,000 in your bank account means that you will be disqualified to, of course, getting pension in this country. I mean, these people are totally savage.
Well, I'll comment on that now.
Go ahead.
That is poultry sum of money. $25,000 and all this crap, right?
Yes.
It makes you start to wonder now. Is somebody paying people to get rid of pensioners?
Yeah, if it's cheaper to, of course, to do that, rather than, of course, having to pay persons who would have deservingly qualified for pension, having regard to the principle that the entire exercise was based.
So I want to tell all them old people right now, all the pensioners, when are they walking on the road? Watch all your tail.
Be careful. Be conscious of your surroundings. Yes.
People out there collecting money just as they call it.
I hear you, my friend. I hear you. No. Once I chuckled, but of course that is real.
That is real?
Yeah. Okay.
I hear to myself, and the red man who all that. But if you the situation want to live to be my age to collect no pension.
All right, okay, my friend. Yeah. But thank you very much. We have some calls coming in.
You know what I'm telling you last thing now?
Oh, go ahead. Yes.
I see everybody in panic mode now.
Yeah. Well, it's obvious.
Because Trump going like that visa.
Yeah, well, I see that. Well, they say it's CARICOM, but of course, our Minister for Foreign Affairs and CARICOM Affairs has made the announcement that a CARICOM team would like to meet, of course, the relevant Trump authorities to, of course, discuss, to explain, to get an appreciation as to what that means for medical support from Cuba. Yeah. Apron. Sorry, I mean Amory Brown. I'm going to say apron. I don't know why I'm always having a slippery tongue with this man.
Well, you see that, and they want to play big bad inside there, you still coming back and hitting them now?
Oh yes. They are in shambles. They are in a shambolic situation. They are in chaos, as you rightly said, and they have no response except, of course, to try to hope that they could last long enough that somehow the election will come and go, and somehow they will not feel the wrath of the people after they would have demitted office, because I'm sure that they know that the quotas electorally I'm talking about is booked.
It's booked. Yeah, it's booked.
Yes.
Booked like
Yeah, you can't do people that and expect to stay in their favor and stay managing their affairs after they are taxpayers and paying you to do good for them, and you end up doing evil.
I'm telling you, anyhow, you must
Yes.
keep allotting the old people to what going on.
Yes, I certainly will. Let me get off of here. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, indeed. Of course, sorry about that, caller. A pleasant good night. Welcome, Mr. Faizabad.
A pleasant good night to you, Uncle Lennox,
Yes,
and
my
all
friend.
the listeners,
Yes.
and to all the contributors. Share, we want the 40,000. 40,000.
40,000 we're
need
going
it.
at, people. 40,000 per night. And that's just the
That's
start.
right.
Go ahead. Yes, I endorse it. Go ahead.
Right, and Uncle Lennox.
Yes.
2 more months, just 2 more months
Yes.
in ordinary time before the 90 days parole start. And then we see now if the dictator will call the date before he leave on the 16th, or he will leave it hiding somewhere in the diplomatic center.
Well, I think he will leave it
Because-
up to the Chinese man to do it, to give him some kind of for
Authority.
no, let me be specific. Some elusive authority, elusive. It is just in his imagination, in other words. So it is imaginary. Amorphous. Go ahead.
Yeah, so now I'm making a clarion call to all the Lavantillians and surrounding areas. Love Lavantil, and Uncle Lennox is there to serve all you. Because honestly, it had a guy, a minister that on a ride bicycle, go to Colpot. And he said that he unite the people in Lavantil and surrounding. I think he fall under the sea lot. And look what's going on in slots in our lovely island in the capital. A peaceful village, closely knit environment. Just imagine now, you're seeing that it's divided into 3, and brother against brothers and sisters against sisters in that area. My God, after 10 years of the PNM, 10 years of the PNM, all they serve and all they give all their heart to and dedication. Look how they're leaving all they to dismantle all themselves and form all themselves and distribute. Oh God, brothers and sisters, wake up to who are listening, because that innocent life and it have people, we all brothers and sisters. Uncle Lennox is there to love Lavantil and the work he's doing. And remember when he went up with Mother Burke, and for the history in the PNM, Uncle Lennox and them collect 3,000 vote. You all had changed, or show the PNM that all are willing to move from in bondage. Look at it now. Where's again? What more? These fellas and them are just talking 9 years, 10 years going solid, it's 10 years going clear. Nothing, no upliftment and unity and love amongst the brothers and sisters in the constituency they serve. And they belong to national security, where they could have make it better for you all. Uncle Lennox, I would like to say more on this, but I know anytime I talk with your program, I just preempt you're talking. But I have to say, the people of Lavantil, please wake up. Give all yourself that chance and that opportunity to harvest the fruit of all the labor in this country and a betterment. A pleasant good night to you, Uncle Lennox, and all the listeners.
Thank you very much. And of course, I think at this moment, let me pause, of course, to make a clarion call as one of our, let's say, a very stalwart callers would say, Mr. Tabakit. A clarion call for, of course, all Lavantillians to, of course, join us. The number is on the screen. You can call me. I put up my number alone because I want to talk to you one-on-one. So please take a note, 337-6940. After the program, you can call me 4 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning. Call me any time of the day. We have a task before us that is so gigantic but so significant for the transformation, what is called the paradigm shift. an attitudinal change for the better and for the advancement of the community. And of course, some of it you will get during the course of or leading up to the campaign, but on the campaign trail, you will be fascinated. You will have no choice but to say, because Love, the party that of course is dedicated to those constituencies, Laventille Outreach for Vertical Enrichment, the name alone speaks of course indigenousness. It speaks community-based. It speaks Laventille-based. But while, of course, including the PNM and others will come to you, whether they are contesting or not, to tell you what they will do for you. 2/3 of what we are going to tell you is what we have already done that you probably didn't know about. You're surprised? You want to know what? Listen to us. Listen. And of course, the other third will be what we will continue to do for you by adding to what we have already done. First time you're hearing that. And don't tell me I know what I'm talking about, because in 2007, if we had the mechanisms and the ability to communicate with you in 2007 like what we have now, and do it in real time and in favorable time, you would have known that the first mass party that mentioned Laventille as a specific part of their manifesto was in 2007 when Love first contested. So in other words, we are long before MTA and others. They are attempting, of course, to acquire a position that we have, of course, traversed already. We have already traversed. You will see. And so therefore let me reiterate that I call on all Laventillians, because as far as we are concerned, all Laventillians belong to the Laventille Outreach for Vertical Enrichment. So registration and all of that and members of the party, no. We have dedicated people, all of us making our contribution. And don't forget, of course, those persons who graduated from MLIO, the school that we created for that specific purpose for Laventille, we want you to contact us as well. And we want, of course, those businesses that either are operating in, because we know how challenging it is, and who have decided to take their skills out of Laventille. I would love you to call me as well, because we have a lot of not projects for you, but for you to contribute as well, because of course we need to develop the entrepreneurial class that is important beyond, of course, professions and the run-of-the-mill mechanic and vocational skills, etc. But let's go to the line. A pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor.
A pleasant good night, Lennox.
Yes.
Pleasant good night to everyone.
Yes.
Let me start this thing rolling here.
Yes.
This is for the Laventille area here.
Go ahead.
I am speaking with passion here now, a little passion.
Go ahead.
Because it will go a long way. Stay at the head of the class and keep in front, be falling right behind. It is time that the people of Laventille, I'm talking about the environs, but especially the Laventillians, it is time for us to get up, do what is right, go forward, put your mark on this beloved country of Trinidad, put your mark where everyone will be paying a close attention. Only you and you alone can do this. We cannot do it by ourselves, but everyone together can do it together. We need to vote the UNC for a better country, for a better living. We need to vote for the word love, the Laventillians, in order to make a mark and get ourselves involved into the politics. We need to show everyone that we care of each other and our environs, and especially the youths of Laventille. This is all the opportunity to become somebody and to be recognized by the rest of the country. Laventille, please, this is it. We have one shot, and you have to make it this round. All right, so let's just do what you have to do, get the things going. But so that is for the people of Laventille. Lennox,
yes,
on the east-west corridor, especially in Laventille, coming down, all by where the Cambron tree is, all the way there. Your picture has to be putting up there. The word, when I say your picture, the party's picture is supposed to be going up there now with numbers. So when the villagers, I would say, coming down, going to Porter's Bay, they can know, you see a number there to call you 24 hours a day to get this thing up and running. So we need to get your number now out on the main road, so that when people passing or coming, going down to Porter's Bay to work, going to the east, going west, they could see a number as big as it is. So we could call you at any time. Because some people might want to get in contact with you, but they don't know how or where. Right? So we need to start putting that in place now, and we could move forward. All right, Lennox?
Yes.
But you stay at the head of the class, and we following. Right? You use one of the leaders, and we will follow, as they would say. All right, Lennox? So you keep the fight, and we fighting with you.
Yes, man.
Blessings.
Yes, indeed. And I want to tell, of course, this is directed to the Laventillians as well. Me, I know Rowley or no Church Young, you know. I am different from all. Those of you who we know yet, ask your neighbor. Ask, there's somebody in Laventille must have been in contact with me one way or another. Whether they want to talk positive or negative. But I would advise you to think. That's all I ask. Think. Because what is coming to you now? What is coming to you now, right now, through this platform? Don't matter what they say. You have to search your conscience and say, but wait now, what this man doing this for? Only he alone? What he doing this for? And when you would have been familiar, and when you would have been given, of course, the historical antecedent and all of what would have been done, and I dare say, without the assistance of the PNM being in government and dominating that constituency or those constituencies from time immemorial, you have to ask your question. You have to ask yourself the question: there could be no money in that for the man. They will tell you that. They will tell you that he's a scamp, he's a rapscallion, Smith, etc. He say all kind of things. Then you must ask yourself the question, those persons who are making those statements, whether what they have done. What they have done. What is their qualification? How the hell you could tell me not to, when I see it in front of my face, graduates from MLIO, when I see it in front of my face, it was Smith who, of course, initiated and founded in the real sense the Laventille Technology and Continuing Education Center. When it was Smith who, of course, recognized the people on the other side of the Laventille West constituency, I'm talking about Las Alturas, going across the Gonzales, was the man who went up in Chinatown and on the hill and began the process of making them independent by organizing their own community-based institution, to the extent to which they felt so comfortable that for the first time ministers were visiting them. Yes, indeed, it was Lennox Smith who initiated, of course, those communities on the eastern side of the, and of course the borderline between Laventille East and West. I talk about Passage Street. In addition, of course, to those buildings and homes and houses behind Las Alturas that look as though they were bombarded by either the Israelis or the Russians, as we see in cities, both in terms of Gaza, the Gaza Strip, and in terms of Ukraine. You're seeing buildings twist. You're seeing buildings falling down. You're seeing big cracks. You can see right through. The only thing you can do is walk through, but you can see it. And it was Lennox Smith who advocated. But Lennox Smith who said that, no, this is wrong. And these places are so close to, so he came up with a plan. Lennox Smith, came up with a plan. And the first one, of course, behind Las Alturas was to expose the entire thing. And of course, I mentioned that in the Commission of Inquiry into Las Alturas as well. I went there, yeah, to give these people justice. And those on the Passage Street end, similar. The earth moving and buildings just start to crackle and twist. And eventually, it became inhospitable for human dwelling or living. And people had to move out. So Alexis Street, Morgan Lane, Prudham Lane, and a little further down, the houses are ramshackles, beautiful houses. People spend their monies, but the earth began to move. And it was I who organized. There has been some, of course, disappointment, I agree. Because when resources and assistance started to come, because I had Imbert, that's him, Imbert, which you're going to hear from tonight. I had him jumping over a ravine, jumping over a concrete, jumping over big stone, because Manning sent him as Minister of Works. After I wrote Manning and tell Manning what is happening there, it looking like a Gaza Strip, what we know today. But then, of course, I said that it looked as though nature was very unkind to that area. People lose their homes. Their families had to split up and disseminate all over the place. And even to today, that is the case. And we had come up with a plan. You will know about it. Because I don't leave any stone unturned. When I on you, are on you. And so in the case of the Passage Street disaster, not only did I get Manning to send Imsbert, who started jump over concrete, jump over drain, jump over ravine, go up and down, of course, as the topography or the nature of the land would have, of course, dictated. So we had no choice. If it's a mountain, it's a mountain. And if it's a plain, it's a plain. And if it's a valley, it's a valley. And if it's a river, it's a river. And if it's, of course, a drain, it's a drain. And we can go on. And if it's concrete, man-made structure that, of course, can't collapse, you have to look at it. Well, ended up, of course, he coming there. And what transpired, I'll just give you a little synopsis. One, we had agreed that HGC will, of course, take care of those persons who would have been displaced because of the destruction to their properties, to find homes for them. The second initiative that we took is that the government must purchase those lands there, but not just like that. We don't want the government to purchase it for purchasing sake because the lands are of no use. But it was, of course, to purchase the land and vest it in the should I say responsibility, or give responsibility to the village council. And that the village council now having those lands would be faced with the responsibility or be given the responsibility to reforestate the whole thing, to plant trees, preferably, of course, productive trees, mangoes, breadfruit, etc., etc., so it could feed the people at the same time, those lands that were acquired by the state because it could no longer accommodate housing. And of course, those persons would have been accommodated and they would have got some kind of kakada to carry them along, because apart from all of that, they had to live and they would have been displaced because of this, what I consider to be movement of the earth, a scenario that damaged the entire community. So the land will be invested in the village council. The village council will then rehabilitate in terms of planting the land, afforestate it. And so, of course, that in itself is an environmental benefit, because it means, therefore, that the water that is coming from the hill where these lands are located, the trees, the roots, will be able to, of course, keep the soil firm and so prevent flooding down the hill on the Eastern Main Road, etc. That is the kind of plan we're talking about, man. Understand that. And the only party that listened and the only party that made overtures, because there are others, the UNC. The PNM had no interest in that, even though, of course, Manning sent that, and Manning, of course, made the initial overture. But I want to say this, because that is crucial as well, because I can't be talking nice talk and not, of course, reveal what additional obligation the community has to make this a reality, not just there, but according to the needs of the various parts of the constituencies, the role of the human beings, the community, the members. You see, because when, of course, the first contract was brought in to rehabilitate the road that would have given access but was damaged to that part of Laventille, Upper Parsley Street, there were elements that were working with me. I didn't want anything. I recommended, of course, persons, because one of the recommendations was to give contracts to those persons who are who are either affected or in the close proximity, the contractor to, of course, do the work, to do the rehabilitation, so that they could generate employment opportunities not only for themselves and their families and their company, but certainly the adjacent or the juxtaposed communities. That is what that is all about. You understand the holistic approach. But guess what? As soon as the first two contracts came to rehabilitate Upper Parsley Street, the roadway itself, everybody started to get smart. They're seeing money now. So the very people who, of course, had to communicate with me, because when AGC or when Ministry of Works communicated with me saying, well, Mr. Smith, we have started, of course, some work and so on. Do you know this company? Obviously, I would say yes. But they start to fight among each other. And then, of course, the bad boys and them, what we consider to be the bad boys, I don't consider them bad boys in the way that others consider them. I consider them to be members of the community who must be taken care of, because they are members of the community too. And they have to eat, and they have to drink, and they have to live, and they have to, of course, have shelter, and they like entertainment just as all of us. So they have to be dealt with, but in a particular way, in order, of course, to contribute positively to the community and not engage, of course, in the further, what I consider to be distancing of the wider community from Laventille by, of course, engaging in subterranean or what I consider to be a criminal behavior, if you want to call it that, if you want to call it antisocial behavior, whatever nice name you want to put it or bad name you want to put it, the fact of the matter is that has been a bugbear to Laventille, and therefore that is why people in the wider part of Trinidad and Tobago and abroad will not come to Laventille, whether to invest or even to blasted visit. So I say to you, nobody will be left out, including those fellas that people will call bad boys and the police will give them a particular brand name. We see them as members of the community and must be dealt with as well. But it must be dealt with in such a way that, of course, the churches and, of course, the schools and those improvised projects such as MLIO and, of course, the Technology and Continuing Education Center, as well as, of course, the only government-sponsored institution for such a purpose of to focus on Laventille. Of which I had the pleasure under the UNC to be vice chairman. We have to get all of these institutions to focus, and of course they must redirect their myopia, in my view, because they don't know. I will give you some stories. I'm only talking this way merely to give you a synopsis, introduction as to what we have done and what is proposed as we move forward to elaborate and expand upon what is already there. Many of you don't know, and will find its way in the manifesto of whatever arrangement we make with the UNC. The UNC is your vehicle for redemption and for, of course, transformation and sustainable development. Let's go to the lines. President, good night. Welcome to the corridor.
Yeah, good night. Good night, Dr. Lennox.
Yes, man. Good night to you, my friend.
Good night. Yeah, good night, everybody. You didn't understand what I said last night. I don't know if I came across clean.
Just remind me so I'll be able to search my memory.
When I said that how if people go into church, they go into all these different religious things. You read in the book of truth and reality, which will open your consciousness, and yet still live in denial of the truth.
Yes. Yes, I remember that. I remember that, yes. And therefore, even though they know the truth, their actions does not demonstrate, and in fact, they act contrary to the truth. I think that is the enigma that you presented to us there last night. And I think that was so wonderful because I mean it is a really a matrix, a complexity that is subjected, of course, to those who understand extrapolation and to, of course, at the same time generate the educational or those facets that will transform people and to bring it closer, make it parallel. That if you know something, then your action must be concomitant with that which you know. If you don't know, it's a different story. So I think we are on the same page in that regard, even though, of course, as a man of the cloth, you put it, of course, in what they will call in the Bible, what they will call it paradox. But go ahead.
Yeah, no. Why I said so is because I am seeing all these people going and yet still they supporting the wrong thing. So then the consciousness has not opened as yet, so the knowledge is not applied.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. Yeah, that's clear. That is clear. That's clear. And and people like us, we cannot give up. We cannot be daunted. We have to continue, of course. Otherwise, all of my adult life, I have been, except for, of course, a little recess in academic pursuits and so on, because you need to get the knowledge and so on in order to really and truly be able to understand and to advance to a next level so that you can help those who have not yet reached that stage. And I think, of course, at my age, I need, of course, to offload as much as I can because my biological life, is now reaching a point where it is inevitable. Let me put it that way.
Yeah. So, what another thing? Did you see the press conference with Jagdev Singh and Saddam Hussein?
No, I did not. That was some time ago, not so?
Yes, last week.
I have it on my list to look at, but I have not found the time as yet. Even though Carnival was a working period for me.
Yeah, well, what I could tell you, I like the way that you're getting across to these people who those condemn the whole set of people, but they just condemn them because of the environment or whatsoever. And I am speaking about the PNM.
Yeah.
How they look down on people because you may be from some area and feel they could use you. So I see you trying getting the educational aspect across so that they will. I only hope they open their eyes and they see what is happening from your perspective, and then they could see reality in front of their own eyes once they
examine
live in
themselves. Yes, the stoic, principle. Yes. See it as it is. Be pragmatic, and be bombastic, and be authoritative in the process, but sincere to yourself in terms of implementing the relevant change. And it deals with here first, and then muscles, utilizing the eyes, of course, and all the senses, but then muscles will determine whether or not we are getting through to the transformation that is desirable.
Mm-hmm. Well, another point too is that you want to do the same thing all the time and get a different results. You need to take a chance, make a choice, and then you will get a different result.
Yes.
So
I agree.
I'm coming back to the press conference.
Yes.
If you listen, that you will see why the police service is in such a mess and disarray.
Okay.
Not that we don't know.
You
know I want to call you and clear.
Yeah, not that we don't know, but sometimes you need endorsement and reinforcement. So I suppose it will be a matter of reinforcement for a fellow like me, because of course you really can't teach me much in terms of those practical and of course human scenarios that over time one had been subject to. I love what the sociologists call participatory observation. For example, what I mean by that is that if I want to know about the displaced people in Port of Spain, as one time I did, and we were doing a research, what I would do, as I did then, I would of course go and mingle among them and see all of what they're doing, rather than staying from aloft and then making your observation. Some things you may miss, but with a participatory observation, you can't miss. I sleep with them for about 2 or 3 days, and I knew almost everything, the habits, what are some of the social relationships, who has connection with San Fernando, and who of course makes space for them at a particular point because they have to come for their welfare check, etc., etc. I can tell you a plethora of things that most of the social scientists at the university will not know and cannot know, simply because they did not engage the society in this pragmatic way.
That's what it's called, social interaction. If you don't have that, you would never understand it.
That's right, exactly. But of course, for social scientists, it is called a participatory observation, because you want it for academic services. But for me, it's not for academic purposes. It's to find out what are the sustainable interventions that you can make. Sustainable is the operating word. And Laventil will get to know all of that in due course. It's sustainable, meaning that it mustn't change. When you change, it must be maintained right through. What we have is cyclical. Of course, some criminologists will call it, of course, recidivism. But it's not recidivism in this case, where you come out, you go back in, you come out, you go back in. No, this is about Recognizing that there is a change, implementing the change, and maintaining the change by adding to, of course, improvement to the change as you move forward, and thus, of course, realizing the social objective. And what are they? To live a better life, to, as everybody else, have a quality of life and standard of living that all of us aspire. But of course, to varying degrees, depending on your capacity and the environment, both physical, social, and psychological, that you are subjected to, inclusive, of course, of family and neighborhood.
Very good. I like your topics. I think I listen to you almost every night.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yes, my friend. All right, I'm sure Lavatil is of a similar view. All right, thanks. Yes, indeed. So let us get, as I was saying before the intervention of this caller, as to him's birth, I told you what I had him doing, so I could prove that. And if you ask him, he may want us to deny it, because, of course, that is humiliation for them when they should be speaking the truth, but they can't speak the truth. And having said that, of course, let me say to you, the recent iteration of Imsbert's statement about the missing 2-3 billion, it doesn't matter, it's too much money to just simply say that it is missing when you can prove that it exists. Let me repeat. It is too much money to say that it is not missing when you cannot prove that it was used somewhere. That it was used somewhere. It is hogwash. And therefore, a person in such a position, whether it's business, imagine, Laventil, you hire a little parlor, and you give somebody to run for you because you went down the road, and the $200 in the cash drawer, because drawer with us, we don't use. We can't afford, of course, them kind of businesses can't afford sophisticated machines to calculate and so on. So you use a drawer, pay money in, $300 there. When you come back, it gone. It gone. And the person you love there will tell you he don't know where it gone. But since he didn't take it, it's still there. You're telling you? You're telling you? Because he didn't take it, it's still there. Firstly, who is responsible? Who you left there? And secondly, how you can't tell me where it gone and because it's not there? How you can't tell me? Then what? Then you know that can be a friend if it's a friend you left there. You know you can't trust that person again. You know that person is incompetent. And you know that you have to get rid of that person. More than that, the person know that they can't come back there. The person who found themselves in that situation where they can't account for the $300 that you left in the cash drawer. How are they coming back? And of course, you have a duty and responsibility. That is your option, of course, to show him a bad face tomorrow morning, especially if it's a neighbor. Show him a bad face. Because he can't explain how that $300 gone missing. You can't just tell me that in case of Imbert has the phantasmagorical, what I consider to be cognitive and intellectual dishonesty. You know what I say? Cognitive and intellectual dishonesty. Because he's trying to play bright now. They tell us that the money are wrong. The money are wrong. It ain't missing. And somehow it was used for something that you can't identify, but it are wrong. And we must accept that. Man, hold your tail now, Imsworth, but don't take my word for it. Let's go straight, of course, to the proof of the latest iteration of this madman, totally incompetent and impotent, telling us that somehow the money still are wrong, even though he can't account for it in strict accounting terms.
Gail Alexander, Guardian News, Paper 6, March 20. Imbert reiterates, no missing money in Auditor General impasse, by Gail Alexander, Guardian News, Paper 6, March 2025. There is no missing money. This was pointed out yesterday by Finance Minister Coleman Burt, who accused opposition leader Kamala Percy-Bissessor of making up stories in the impasse between Finance Ministry officials and the Auditor General in the 2023 Public Accounts matter. He did so in a statement responding to Percy-Bissessor's recent call for Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley to launch an immediate independent investigation into Imbert's conduct regarding missing billions of taxpayers' dollars. Percy-Bissessor's call followed a Privy Council judgment in the Auditor General's favor. The government subsequently dropped its probe into the Auditor General's conduct, detailing the process involved in submitting accounts to the Auditor General, which involved certification by 3 ministry officers. Imbert rebutted 2 of Percy-Bissessor's claims. The finance minister, therefore, cannot be seriously accused by any right-thinking person of being responsible for any missing money in the financial statements, especially since there is no missing money. That story is an orchestrated campaign.
You hear what you man say? Especially when there is no missing money and is somebody figment. But how do we know that money is missing? The person who has the independent objective office of Auditor General of Trinidad and Tobago, she says so. And in the initial stage, he accepted that. So much so that they went back and checked. In spite of a time frame, the end of January, I believe it should have been of the year under consideration. I think is 2023. And even though they went back and they reconciled, the same people that he say is now responsible, they couldn't find it blasted money. You as the minister, you went to the parliament and to the cabinet and talked that hogwash. You should be summarily fired. But of course, under Rowley, this is a criminal enterprise. This is, of course, a bunch of conspirators, rapscallions. So you wouldn't get that. But listen to him.
Campaign being mounted by the opposition to fool the gullible, seriously accused by any right-thinking person of being responsible for any missing money in the financial statements, especially since there is no missing money. That story is an orchestrated campaign being mounted, seriously accused by any right-thinking person of being responsible for any missing money in the financial statements, especially since there is no missing money. That story is an orchestrated campaign being mounted by the opposition to fool the gullible, he said. Imbert, who accused...
Now notice, he said mounted by the opposition. Apply your common sense. If you were Imbert and you're looking to make an excuse and you're looking for a scapegoat, because that's what this is about, but a poor exemplification. I don't know what university these fellas went, but he loves, of course, to pride his academic prowess, his academic acceptability. But we know now that is a bunch of indolence and that they are intellectually, cognitively, and cerebrally depraved and in decline. Because your common sense and my common sense would have expected that he wouldn't be blaming Kamala Percy-Bissessor. She did not orchestrate the story She is regurgitating that which is in the public domain, consequential of what? A report of the Auditor General. Why didn't he say that it was a concoction or a figment of the Auditor General's imagination? Why didn't he say that? But that is to get what I consider to be a spit in the sky, boomerang, political fodder, political benefits. I believe that somehow the population, especially those sycophants connected to the PNM, who of course will believe that a dribble car bus, that a dribble has so much elasticity that it cannot be severed. And worse yet, for Imbert and them to take these poor people who have reposed their trust, their patience, and their loyalty to them, and embarrass these people like that, embarrass us like that, or attempt to embarrass us. But of course, they're sycophants and they are sorry for all you. Are sorry for all you. Only taking that. But a pleasant good night. Welcome. Before, of course, we continue with Imbert and his, of course, asinine, again, excuse. Nothing different to Rowley and, of course, the Petroleum Oil Refinery, and, of course, so many other, such as, of course, the Vincent Nelson matter, of course, Sandals, and we can go on and on. But go ahead, my friend.
Yes, Lennox. Sorry to
no problem, man. No problem, man. That is the job of the.
But this rapscallion here.
Yes.
That you see on your screen behind you.
Yes.
And I mean, I had to smile when you say I dribbled no burst. I don't know what it is really going on with that one. But they catch me with that one. But the question that I want to put towards you, is there any way in public records be able to find out where these guys do they have any outside of accounts outside, any banking outside of Trinidad and Tobago? Because if I was to put $3 billion in a local bank, it will show up. It will show up somewhere down the line, because we could find out like, hey, this is too much money. Their lifespan doesn't exist for them to have $3 billion. So I want to know, is $3 billion? Do they have a bank account outside?
That will be easy.
Yeah,
that will be easy to trace, in spite of their attempts to, of course, conceal. That's one. Two, a more rational way of launching an investigation is, of course, for them to get the hell out of office now, and the UNC gets it and do their human and their constitutional duty to find out where this money has gone, and of course, and to investigate in the process where these people are having their money. And I've said it before, and I want to say it as well. Don't be surprised when they accepted out of the blues, like some kind of epiphany out of the blues, the report of the Salary Review Commission. You see, I can tell you this, it's easy to commingle, because they are not going to be out of government. I don't want to live the life that they were living while in government. So you will see them buying things all over the place. And I could bet you bottom dollar that the money that they would have stolen would have been mixed, or the argument would have been, Melissa, we just get back pay so much, how much millions, and that's the money we're using now. Is finding a way, of course, as money launderers will do, because in order, of course, to wash their money. So they will buy a car.
Because I was thinking that they would have been invested in properties and all over.
That's right. That is what is going to happen.
You know. So what should be done in an investigation?
Well, as I said, the first thing is that they have to get out of office, and then, of course, the incoming or the succeeding UNC administration. And as you know, they have the capacity much more than them. That is why they are so jumpy these days. They are so agitated. They are so in a state of tremor because of the reality that the UNC will get into government, 39 seats in Trinidad, and of course the investigations will proceed thereafter.
Well, Lennox, I mean, I'm just using this as an example. Let's say you in that circle, right? God forbid, you're not in that, but I'm just using it.
Yeah, go ahead, no problem.
And they investigating you. Obvious, you know what it is you're doing, so you're gonna have nothing when I look at you, but you will have family members, you will have friend members, you will have financial members who will.
I could tell you up front one time, go to temporary class. Go to temporary class. That is what's going to happen. Yeah.
Tentacles that will stretch out far.
That's right. That is loyal to you.
But yes, so you know where your money stands.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I'm just using logic here. So I guess that is what might play off. So when they target him and they go to him, I have nothing. I don't have a cent.
That's right. So what do you do? What do you do as Kamala Prasad Bisasa and the UNC? You go after those elements that suddenly have demonstrated enigmatically the acquisition of sudden wealth. Yes.
Right, rise in their wealth.
Yes, that's right.
All right, Lennox.
So the investigation has to be expansive. We know that is what they will do. I mean, you don't need to be a rocket scientist, or you don't need to be, of course, a criminologist or a rookie investigator in the police service to do that. But you need the authority to do so, because they are going to push back. They're going to have their lawyers and so on to try to go to the court to get orders not to do this and not to do that and so on. And we must be prepared for that. But it's going to be a long haul, because these people are too dishonest and must never be in government after the calling of the 2025 general elections. Person, good night. Welcome. Person, good night. Welcome. Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes, good night.
Good night, Mr. Smith. Calling from St. James.
Yeah, hold on, Mr. Tagrigo. I have a caller on it. Yes. Go ahead, Mr. St. James.
Yes,
yes, go ahead, Mr. St. James.
I find it beyond strange.
Beyond what?
Beyond strange. That as soon as the Auditor General report on the missing funds came out, a certain finance minister was no longer given the opportunity to act as the prime minister. Clearly, what happened there, a blind man could see that the other persons involved in that nefarious activity, when they checked their account and the amount reported missing, the maths didn't add up. Something went wrong. What they were told that was going to be skimmed and what was actually skimmed did not make.
Yeah, did not add up.
It didn't comply.
Yeah, it did not add up. Yes.
It didn't add. So when they check, and they realize, wait, it's nearly 4 billion missing. How I only get this? You see, thief from thief. That's a bacchanal. And one has to be clear in one's mind that the objective of this particular government, led by this prime minister, was to bankrupt this country.
I concur, my friend. Anybody with a modicum of common sense observing would have to say that. How you could be so greedy? But go ahead.
Because instead of trying to help everybody along at a time when the country had resources, a refinery, a war started in Russia, forcing oil to become a valuable resource once again. And those of us with refineries were standing ready to make trillions of dollars. We didn't take advantage of that opportunity.
We couldn't, because they sold out from the beginning based on their greed and they attempt to cover up their greed, not knowing that there were better days coming if they had left it alone and they eat a little less, but instead they want it all and deprive us.
Millions of US dollars invested in Dragon Gas. Ask them how much money they invest in Guyana's oil boom. Did they even consider investing in Guyana's oil boom? I think not. And what did Venezuela do with the money? Narco traffic. Use it for drugs. Use it to go and frustrate Guyana and tell them they want half the country. Set up a criminal enterprise across the border. And then turn around and sign an agreement with the United States that they could set up a base here anytime they needed to go and get Maduro. And now every man jack on the run. Because these Venezuelans don't take prisoners. And that is about clear as we could have it. The manner in which this country has been run for the last 9 years is a mafioso. But we only have ourselves to blame.
Oh yeah.
Because they admitted that they are mafia. They admitted everything, you know. They told us. But what did we do? That's it. I thank you for the time you offer me, Mr. Smith.
Thank you very much, of course, for your...
Enjoy the rest of your night.
Same to you, my friend. And thanks for your contribution. Bye-bye. Yes, Mr. Tagariwa, go ahead, because I have a comment to make on the last caller's very astute and sagacious as well as eruditic analysis. Go ahead, Mr. Tagariwa.
You know, we always say man make plans.
Yes.
Oh God, does he say?
That's right.
When Trump revoked the visa, how do we change our money?
When the time comes, yes.
How do we go to America to get our money? Right? Because he couldn't revoke the visa, you want to say that?
Yes.
So we're going to say about our partner, you're not partner in that, you know. Let me tell you something else. You have a movie they call The Racket.
The what?
They showed that in the 1960s in Globe Cinema.
The erratic?
Yeah, the Racket, R-A-C-K-E-T.
Okay, Ratchet, okay.
The Racket.
Racket, okay, Racket, okay. All right.
And everybody was in so much a racket. And when that racket, when it explodes too, all man sign up watching one another. Yeah.
Well, that's what is happening with the PNM right now. They are imploding, frankly, and everybody, of course, is watching each other as to who would make what move to defend themselves. But it will intensify as the heat turns into a conflagration to consume, of course, the entire PNM, what I consider to be mafia house or criminal enterprise. Go ahead.
Robert Mitchell made that movie.
All right.
You must be the shooting Globe.
Yeah.
All of them come on watching. According to you, when they implode, everybody come outside watching one another.
Yes, I can well imagine. Yeah, because evil cannot prevail over good. Could never.
At all.
Yes.
All right, go ahead and do your thing.
Thank you very much, my friend. Yes, so I was making the point, people, and I said I had something to add to the previous caller, and that is, there is precedent, my friend, for that approach. It is no different to, of course, the recusal despicable conduct that Rowley has institutionalized in the cabinet and government of Trinidad and Tobago by saying it's no big deal. What is required is that your friend, family, acquaintance, or otherwise, name is to be the subject of some benefit to be considered by the cabinet, and you being part of the cabinet, just walk out the door when the decision is made, then come back in. As if we're that stupid not to understand that before that final decision, that's the final stage. Prior to that, you would have had what is called a precursor. You would have had, of course, a pre-engagement. In other words, that document that is before the cabinet for ratification of a friend or family of a cabinet minister couldn't come there for the first time. So it's logical and common sense that they would have done their round robin. They would have indicated to each other, and therefore when they go there, it would have been orchestrated sufficiently to know, well, listen, we will be going with this, and this is how we will do it. And of course, all that person had to do is to pretend that they were not part and parcel of the process, not the cabinet meeting itself, but the process. That's not waste time. So there is precedent. But I think what is more glaring and much more poignant and much more relevant to the caller before this in terms of that conspiracy and that conspirators group of rapscallions is when, of course, the Vincent Nelson matter burst. And what happened? As the caller was saying, why it is that Imbert was removed from being acting prime minister role. But it's nothing different to Al-Wari being intrinsically, indistinguishably attached to the Vincent Nelson matter and all of the shenanigans that go with it, whether it be, of course, the letter of indemnity, whether it be, of course, holding out, of course, overtures to Vincent Nelson, saying that he will not be prosecuted by the DPP, etc., or quite apart from the $10 million that was given to him. All Rowley did was, of course, to move Al-Wari from the seat, the hot seat, and put him into, of course, a lesser hot seat. I wouldn't say a cold seat, a lesser hot seat. Well, it's the same thing happened with Imbert. And I suspect that the same situation when, of course, there was, of course, the speculation that he will not be going up because for the seat that he now holds because of the scathing commentary of the Privy Council. So what was the compromise? The compromise clearly has been that he will go up for the last time. That is in the hope that not only those outstanding matters, I know they will not get into government, but believing that they will get into government because clearly they have some kind of larcenous agenda to thief, in other words, the elections. That is why I say to you, if there are 20 persons in a constituency and all 20 go and vote, let me see how they thief in. That is what has to happen, Laventil. That is what has to happen across the East-West corridor and across the country, including Tobago. All of us must understand what the Rowley they give, because they will stand in our faces in spite, of course, of these, what I consider to be venerable institutions such as the Privy Council, and Rowley will say that he did no wrong. And just as how Imbert is now saying he did no wrong, and that no money missing, flatly, of course, and contradicting what we know, insulting our intelligence, and trying to render, of course, fallacious the observation and the recommendation and the report of the Auditor General. Yeah. So the point I am making is that it happened before. Al-Rari just not too far, it's still in the cabinet, but to take they lessen the heat on him. So that is what transpired there with respect to Imbert not getting the office of Prime Minister, because the heat would have been exacerbated if he had remained there as acting Prime Minister in the absence of this, what I consider to be lame duck criminal, and of course, evil Prime Minister. A pleasant good night. Welcome.
Yeah, good night. Good night.
Good night to you.
Yeah. What is Imbert's qualification in accounting, and what is his working life then?
Well,
I understand he was some kind of...
He has something in architecture. I understand he has something in architectural law, something to in that area. But of course, just as how he has performed ultimately in government and as a Minister of Finance, whether he is a accountant or not, but the fact of the matter is that he is a charlatan. Well, I say so from the perspective that he constructed a stadium, the only stadium for the Grenadian government, and it collapsed.
Well, that is what I say. I remember Pandit telling
yes,
that.
It collapsed. I was in Grenada doing a program on the invitation of the government there, because they recognized what we were doing in Laventille, and we had to, of course, do for them similar program like that of MLIO, the Mobile Laventille Improvement Organization Trade School. And I could tell you, in 9 months' time, they were making waves. And of course, the people who otherwise would have only been qualified to do agriculture and so on were suddenly working in banks and so on, because they were exposed to computer literacy and a number of other skills that was not available to that particular area of that parish. It's called St. David's, and therefore the country under what was called then the Grenada Development Committee, which of course I advised and implemented certain programs to develop the youth. So you're talking about a wealth of experience all over the place, whether it be working with, of course, the Caribbean Development Bank, whether, of course, being recognized by the Inter-American Development Bank, whether, of course, I go to the United States, and of course invited by Professor Bennett at the American University in Washington to lecture on the whole question of poverty and the issues that will cause that, particularly in the Caribbean and Trinidad in particular context, and of course working with Dr. Gatti James and others in New York to develop what we now call, which of course we are using and have been using, the empowerment zone concept, all of which will be of course laid out on the campaign trail in due course.
No, here, I didn't even know your organization was invited to Grenada. So how come the government here shut all you down?
Because they wanted to know, as you have, because as you have seen, they wanted to know whether or not Lennox Smith is PNM. And of course, Lennox Smith is too independent. And I say so without fear of contradiction, because it's the same predicament as Bishop Barbara Gray Burke was in. And of course, today she is the victim of that level of malicious anti-developmental agenda, only of course to profess to be dominant and at the same time contradictorily or ironically loving the people that have supported them over the years, but yet still they enter the way and be in their way and stymied their development. The latest victim of that was Garth Christopher, who's of course after school program computer literacy initiative was closed down because he was too independent and not a PNM. Mind you, unfortunately, after all these years, the PNM in Laventille and other places cannot find people who are that creative, whose ingenuity is such that will, of course, build the human capacity and, of course, generate the platform or what I consider to be the building blocks towards a transformation and eventual independent development on a sustained basis. They have had no one to do that. Everybody who rose to that level, whether it be Archbishop Burke, whether it be Penny, not the Penny that we know, but Listra Penny with her children's home, or with, of course, people like Horace Raymond, who died deceased, or Morgan, who, of course, was in charge of CPOS, etc. I could name all of the progressive elements that the PNM orchestrated to kill because they were on the way to enlightening the people of Laventille and making them independent and avoiding, of course, the quagmire and the turmoil that they have not just spawned, but which the Laventille and environs and the East-West corridor in general represents. In other words, constituencies that they dominated for all these years as a vote bank, as opposed to true and sustainable and real development for the people's advancement and, of course, the quality of life and standard of living. These people, evil because it works for them, and they believe they must pursue it. But people like me will burst that, what I consider to be paradigm paralysis, and engage, of course, in a paradigm shift never before seen in this country, because the thing has come full circle after 60 years or 6 decades of this level of betrayal that is the PNM, a criminal enterprise. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. So, Grenada saw it fit that you could do something, and they grasped the opportunity and uplifted themselves.
Yes.
While you in Trinidad here, just to stymie the whole of the area that you were involved with.
Political greed on the part of these, what I consider to be ne'er-do-wells, nincompoops, indolence, lazy, incompetent, and lack of the knowledge to, of course, do the transformation. So what they do, they dazzle you with stupidity by the abuse of the resources of the country to which they gain access by undermining the electoral process and becoming prime minister and minister and cabinet, etc., only to plunge Trinidad and Tobago into the dilemma that is, of course, contemporary Trinidad and Tobago. We are in a shambolic state.
All right, listening.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, indeed. Okay. Thank you, of course. Sorry for being so elaborate from time to time, but I have to do so in order to let the Laventillians know who they're dealing with. Finally, who you're dealing with. A man who will take no prisoners as far as development is concerned. And I will address and confront all and sundry. That is why I could call Rowley on a daily basis a rapist and a pedophile, and he could do nothing about it. Nothing about it. And I've been doing so for the past 10 years. 10 years. And tonight, of course, is no exception. Rowley is a blasted rapist and a pedophile. And when the fella call you a raper man, you say you're threatening to take him to court. Why didn't you? Only when I say that I'm going to be a witness. He then, of course, deceptively rescinded that decision by action, not by talk. There is more. You will know my confrontation with respect, of course, to the Chinese man as well, Young. A total buffoon. And clearly knows where the skeletons are buried. Why, of course, he is the anointed. And Rowley believed that he could simply just say 21 Aolio, he resigned, etc., etc. I want to see that happen. Rowley must remain there And we must, of course, exact our revenge for giving us poison, ache, pain, agony, drudgery, and then telling us it's the best thing that is for us. Whilst they go away with ham, lamb, and jam, and the entire blasted treasury of the country. Let's go back, of course, to Imbert and hear what he has to say in his recent iteration to try to insult our collective and individual intelligence.
First possessor of clutching at straws.
Tried to throw it on Kamala Persad-Bissessar.
Noted that she has been in public life for almost 30 years and must have a proper understanding of the process. Imbert explained that in the annual format, the Auditor General has produced a report on the following financial statements. I. Statements of the Treasury showing the financial position of the country. 2. Appropriation accounts of individual accounting officers. 3. Statements of receipts and disbursements of individual receivers of revenue. And 4. Financial statements of individual administering officers of funds. He said these statements aren't prepared by a finance minister and are accompanied by a statement of declaration and certification signed by the 3 finance ministry officials, namely the accounting officer, who is the permanent secretary, the comptroller of accounts, and the treasury director. He added, "It is now well established that an unfortunate accounting error was made by officials at the central bank on February 8, 2023, as a result of a failure of software associated with new electronic check clearing system introduced by the central bank in 2023. This error found its way into the public accounts when they were submitted to the Auditor General in January 2024. Again, for the avoidance of doubt, this accounting error was not discovered by the Auditor General's office. Instead, it was discovered by personnel in the Budget Division doing their usual year-end review of the fiscal outturn for 2023 after the accounts were submitted to the Auditor General. Following this discovery, the public servants in the Treasury subsequently attempted to bring the accounting error to the attention of the Auditor General."
We were running on fumes. We were running on...
Yeah, listen to this backside. So you understand, you cannot for one moment trust what they're saying. Because remember, this is the man. And clearly at the time, before the 2015 general elections, would have been touted to be finance minister. Obviously, he and Rowley were riding buddies when they went, of course, to the Hyatt in front of course, diplomats from different countries and saying on certain terms that they will never, of course, implement property tax, or they will not, of course, engage in subsidy reduction. But they didn't care, just as how they didn't care about Trump. When Delcy Rodriguez, they brought in, they didn't care. They believe that this is a sovereign country, but belong to them. And the rest of us, even though they put us in jeopardy, we are separated apart. But as Jack Warner rightly said, this is Trinidad and Tobago. And for Trinidad, it's Kamala Persad-Bissessar. Tobago is Fali. And after that, well, of course, we have to expand it. The and belonged to Rowley. And now we know now it's his Chinese designate or PNM. The and belonged to PNM. There's nothing for them, in other words. And so he was up and down the place. The country was running on fumes. That level of misinformation, disinformation. And he was in opposition at the time talking that kind of hogwash. Irresponsible. And contributed to the email gate fiasco. I'll put it another way. The email gate conspiracy. And therefore, to bring down a government. And that is treason. Treason. Conspiracy to treason. He was talking that hogwash. But listen to what they say afterwards when they got into government as well. Listen carefully. So from the country running on fumes under Kamala Persad-Bissessar, and you will hear the confession, and they say so with a straight face, without an apology, and that is what make it most despicable, and that is what must make us harden our hearts, become indulgent, and have no remorse, and relentlessly pursue them for blue lights and silver bracelets.
23. After the accounts were submitted to the Auditor General. Following this discovery, the public servants in the Treasury subsequently attempted to bring the accounting error to the attention of the Auditor General.
We were running on fumes.
Listen to him.
We were running on fumes. We were running on fumes. The previous government maxed out our overdraft at the central bank.
But we only have cash.
Now listen to this, Prime Minister.
For 3 days.
Let me come back to this lie that the country only had 3 days worth of money to run. First, we were already in September, which means at the end of that quarter, the oil monies would be come.
Just in case you don't know, that is the former governor of the central bank, Rambaran, who of course they dismissed because he wasn't part and parcel of their, or he was not cooperating in their schemes in government. So they had to get rid of him quickly and they set him up. But of course, recently you would learn that he got $5 million for wrongful dismissal. But let's hear what Rambaran had to say about this so-called country running on fumes.
Coming in. We had about $5.5 billion in the Heritage and Stabilization Fund and over $10 billion in official reserves. So there was no way that you could say that the country had no money and that the treasury was empty. That is one of the big lies that has been propagated together with a series of lies, such as that there's been an economic turnaround. Trust is important, and therefore if you keep lying, that trust is broken. I first met Minister Imbert 2 weeks after he became Minister of Finance, and that was after repeated requests to meet with him. And at that meeting, Imbert was only interested in one thing: how could he get his hands on CLICO's assets? And when I told him that the central bank had already formulated the CLICO resolution plan that had basically identified the assets that would be sold, when they would be sold, an estimated price, and we had already informed the public in the interest of transparency and good governance what this plan was all about, he just then became vexed and abruptly ended the meeting and walked out of the room. At no point in time then did we ever discuss the central bank overdraft. We all know that there's no economic turnaround. This country has gone through 5 consecutive years of successive economic contraction. The numbers would show that between 2016 to 2019 we've contracted by almost 10%. A whopping $70 billion has been borrowed by this administration in 5 years. And if we count now the fact that they've raided the Heritage and Stabilization Fund 3 times, so far the total brings us about $1.2 billion taken from the Heritage and Stabilization Fund. And what is key about that is they've taken this money from the HSF, but there's been no accountability as to what it has been spent on. The general reply when Minister Imbert has been asked, well, what have you spent this HSF money on? He says, it's for the General Service of Trinidad and Tobago. Right? So we have no idea where this money has actually gone.
We have approximately $10 billion in official reserves. We have $5.6 billion.
That's when they became Prime Minister and the government now. We're only talking that. And listen to Imbert too, what he meant from the country running on fumes to what you are hearing now.
We have $5.6 billion in the Heritage and Stabilization Fund.
A lot of the ministries have money in bank accounts that the last government borrowed that they couldn't spend because they ran out of time. A lot of the ministries have money in bank accounts that the last government borrowed that they couldn't spend because they ran out of time. A lot of the ministries have money in bank accounts that the last government borrowed that they couldn't spend because they ran out of time. Sport is one of them. Sport had $500 million sitting on in a bank account, believe it or not. But Sport had that. So we were able to take $150 million from that bank account and pay for those 3 aquatic centers. So when I come into government, I meet a whole set of loan arrangements for hospitals, for military vessels, for all sorts of things. Billions. Arima Hospital, 1.8 billion. Kuva Hospital, 1.5 billion. Point Fortin Hospital, 1.6 billion. Vessels coming from Holland, 1.3 billion. You know, we ain't sending back nothing, you know. So we ain't sending back no boat. $5 billion in hospital loan, $1.3 billion for vessels from Holland, $250 million from a vessel coming from China, $500 million for some helicopter. All of this on my desk.
Now there you have it, people. And of course, you know now that the UNC had made provision for the Arima Hospital, Grandi Hospital, Point Fortin Hospital. But these fellas, instead of being grateful and instead of genuflecting to the UNC and say thank you, they then of course take the money, abuse it, reduce what the UNC had intended in terms of infrastructure, whether it be hospitals, etc. Reduce it. We don't know where the rest has gone, because when you compare the amount of money that was claimed to be borrowed for these purposes, you will see that every one of these facilities is of a lesser quality, let me put it that way, or a lesser size, as the case may be, than what was originally intended by the UNC. And I want you to remember that 106 schools attempted by the UNC administration, some of which were in various stages of completion, that was left there, but not an iota of any kind of corruption, discovery, but they leave it alone. But instead, they go and they concoct, manufacture, like in the case of Vincent Nelson. In the case of Vincent Nelson, and then of course, where they have soft targets, EMBD, and claiming of course some cartel. And Rowley and they claiming that of course Munilal is a scamp and Jerlin John of course is put into the mix, etc. While of course Al-Rari gets a slap on the wrist for the same alleged abuse of a benefit that a parliamentarian will get as far as tax exemption for vehicles. But Lee is before the court, but not Al-Rari. Neither Al-Rari is before the court for perverting the course of justice minimum by setting up Anand Ramlogan and Ramdeen. More of that will come. Ramdeen and Ramlogan are not stupid. The time will come and coming rapidly, so they have to pay. And of course, you have the female of them all, Camille Robinson Regis, money moving from one bank to the next, but suddenly it moved back to the same bank, but the money was spent. Yes, it's an enigma. Figure it out. That is the kind of, and of course, Rowley is saying he will withdraw his money from First Citizen Bank because he is convinced that it's them who exposed Camille Robinson Regis' financial dealings that are questionable. Understand what is happening here. And it could only happen because they are in government. Lafontaine, you have a duty to expel them. You have a duty to annihilate them. You have a duty to purge them. You have a duty to eliminate and to discard, because in return for our loyalty, commitment, and dedication, they treated us as outcast. I say treated in past tense because I know on this occasion you will do the right thing because you have now a vehicle that hitches its wagon to, of course, the UNC. UNC, of course, credibility has been proven over and over to be intact and cannot be, of course, easily derailed, as opposed to the blatant, conspicuous, unadulterated iniquities of the PNM across the board. Nothing. You can't rely on them to speak the truth, and you can't rely on them when they would have said they're doing something. In other words, as I've always said, when they tell you to jump, you stand up, and when they tell you to close your eye, you leave it open wide as could be. Because they have been coalesced into a criminal enterprise under the despicable and egregious banner of the PNM. And you only have to, of course, go to Balize House now to see the manifestation thereof. People, we have come to the end of tonight's program. Have a wonderful rest of the night. God bless. I gave you back, of course, your 19 plus minutes. Having started, of course, 19 minutes late. But I'm sure that you would have been much more informed, much more confident, much more absorbent in terms of what is happening in our country and what is purporting to be government and governance in this country. And we know who the players are that are detrimental to Trinidad and Tobago, the existential threat to our democracy, our economy, our civilization is that of the PNM, led by all of those participants, betrayers and Judases, who, of course, why somebody say yesterday, don't call them Judas because Judas went, of course, and committed suicide. Well, I hope I could say it for the same consequence when blue lights and silver bracelets would have visited all of them. They have conspired as a government to close down the oil refinery and interfere with, of course, the foreign exchange revenue earning capacity of this country, and for which they must not be forgiven, for which they must pay the blue lights and silver bracelet price for that level of conspirators, evil, wickedness, avarice, greed, and incompetence, all of which are stereotypical of this government. Yes, indeed. So we have come to the end.
So the treasury broke and they say that recession jamming. So no foreign countries really start migrating. They lose faith in the country, they say we gone down the drain. They say no more could we see happy times again. But the will to recover in my people like have confidence. Although many may seem to feel that I talking nonsense, but the majority of we decide we're not going to run, because now is the time to show we patriotism. For we country facing, it's that is our, so our people need.
So once again, people, of course, have a wonderful rest of the night. God bless. Don't forget, of course, tomorrow morning, the ground report, Andy, Michael, myself, as we continue with these and other issues. Have a wonderful rest of the night. God bless. Bye-bye.
We could make it if we try, just a little harder. If we just get one more try, From the time Trini analyzed just what was the problem, yes, we start making very positive moves to solve them. We fired the old set of managers we had working, and it's a new group we went and we bring in. And if the goods we require, them new managers not supplying. When election time come back wrong, it's new ones we bring in. But if it's one thing about my people, I could guarantee that they would never ever put party before country. And if the country facing is dark, is sour, and our people need us today more than ever. But in our fight to recover, if ever you feel to surrender, it have one little thing that I want you always remember. We could make it if we try, just a little harder. If we just give one more try, life would be much sweeter. The treasury was full and happy time some was enjoying. It's in Mova and Laventine poor people was living. Now the treasury flat and the country come back to square one. Poor people remain on the same old ghetto in Junction. But look at the economy return today on some footing. If the same poor people 10 days and cola they're taking. And without social unrest, poor people paying the price. Because they know for the country, nothing too much to sacrifice.